There is a house on East Delmar Street in Springfield, Missouri, and if you drove past it today, you would not look twice. It is a modest house on a quiet street, the kind of street where people know the sound of each other's cars. I want you to hold that image, the ordinariness of it, because everything I am about to tell you happened inside that ordinariness and refused for more than 30 years to explain itself. On a June weekend in 1992, 3 women vanished from that home.
Springfield police, the FBI, and numerous other agencies have searched for leads on the trio but have come up empty.
Their cars stayed, their purses stayed, even the dog stayed, but the women did not. If you were new here, welcome. This is Criminal Cadence, where we sit with the cases that never let go, and I am glad you found us. If these stories matter to you the way they matter to me, subscribing means you won't miss the ones still waiting to be told. Now, let me take you to Springfield. Before we talk about how they disappeared, I think it is important to know who they were. Sherrill Levitt was 47 years old and worked as a cosmetologist. She spent her days doing people's hair, listening to their stories, their worries, and the everyday conversations that make up life in small town. She was also a single mother. Friends described her as hardworking and fiercely protective of her family. Not long before she disappeared, she bought a house on East Delmar Street and had been renovating it room by room. She was not planning to leave, she was building a future there. And that is an important detail because it reminds us of something that's easy to forget. This was not a woman tying up loose ends. She was in the middle of creating a home. Her daughter was Susan, although everyone called her Suzie. She was 19 years old and had just graduated from Kickapoo High School. Her friends described her as strong-willed and independent. She was especially close to her mother, and by all accounts, the two shared a close relationship. Then there was Stacy McCall. She was 18 years old and, like Suzie, had just graduated from high school. Her mother, Janice McCall, described Stacy as responsible and dependable. She said her daughter always kept in touch and would never have disappeared without telling someone.
Friends and family of 19-year-old Suzanne Streeter and 18-year-old Stacy McCall say it's not like them to just leave and not tell anyone where they're going.
She calls and lets me know where she's going to be. She's never missed work. She's a very conscientious young woman.
So, those are the 3 women at the heart of this case. Sherrill Levitt, her daughter Suzie Streeter, and Suzie's best friend Stacy McCall. On the 6th of June 1992, none of them had any reason to believe that by the following morning, they would become part of one of America's most enduring unsolved mysteries. The 6th of June 1992 was graduation day. Suzie and Stacy graduated from Kickapoo High School alongside hundreds of other students. It should have been one of the happiest days of their lives. That evening, they celebrated the way many teenagers do after graduation. They went to a series of parties, spending time with friends and enjoying the start of the summer. Now, this is where the timeline becomes important, because the decision they made over the next few hours, ordinary decisions at the time, would later become some of the most closely examined details in the entire investigation. As the night went on, their plans changed more than once. At first, they talked about staying at a hotel. Then they planned to stay at their friend Janelle Kirby's house. But when they arrived, there was not enough room, so they made one final decision. They drove to Suzie's house instead. The plan was to spend the night there, then head to Whitewater in Branson the following morning. Before settling in for the night, Stacy called her mother to let her know where she would be. Now, this is one of the details investigators have returned to again and again. That final decision was made late in the evening. Whether anyone outside their friends knew those plans had changed has never been established, but it has remained one of the many unanswered questions in this case. Sometime after 2 a.m., Suzie and Stacy left the final party and drove to the house on East Delmar Street.
From Kickapoo High School. They then went to Suzanne's home on East Delmar Street.
The exact time has never been established. Sherrill was believed to have already gone to bed. Earlier that evening, she had spoken to a friend on the phone about painting a dresser. It was an ordinary conversation on an ordinary Saturday night. No one knew it would be the last confirmed conversation she would ever have. Suzie and Stacy arrived at the house and went inside. And as far as investigators have been able to establish, that's the last confirmed point in the timeline. Everything that happened after that had to be pieced together from the evidence that was left behind. The following morning, Sunday the 7th of June, the three women were supposed to be on their way to Whitewater in Branson. But as the morning went on, no one could reach them. Friends called the house several times, and when no one answered, they decided to drive over and check on them. Before long, family members also arrived as well. What they found would shape this investigation from that moment on. The front door was reportedly unlocked. All three cars were parked outside, but inside the house, the women's purses were sitting together with the cash still inside. Their keys were there, the cigarettes they were known to carry were still there. The beds had been slept in. Even the family dog was still inside, unharmed, but noticeably distressed. There was no blood or overturned furniture, and no obvious sign of a struggle. Almost everything looked exactly as it should, except for one detail. The globe covering the porch light was shattered, with broken glass scattered near the front door. More than 30 years later, it remains one of the few pieces of physical evidence investigators have ever had. Everything you would expect someone to take with them was still there. Their keys, their purses, their money, their cars. It was as though the women had vanished, but their lives had been left exactly where they were. There is one more detail investigators have never been able to explain. That morning, people at the house began receiving obscene, sexually explicit phone calls. The answering machine also contained a message that was later described as strange, but before police arrived, it was accidentally erased in the confusion. Now, it is important to separate fact from speculation. Investigators have never established that the phone calls or the erased message was connected to the disappearance. It is easy to imagine that the missing recording held the answer, but there is no evidence to support that. All we know is this: on the morning Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy disappeared, someone called that house, and we will never know what they said. Before investigators had the chance to secure the house, something happened that would complicate the investigation almost immediately. Friends and family had already been through the house. They were doing what most people would do: checking rooms, answering the phone, looking for any sign of the women. No one thought they were walking through a crime scene. In the confusion, someone swept up the broken glass from the shattered porch light. Someone also handled the answering machine before police had the chance to examine it. No one did anything wrong. They reacted the way most people would. They were not thinking about preserving evidence. They were looking for 3 people they cared about. But from a forensic point of view, those first few hours came at a cost. By the time investigators carried out a formal examination of the house, the scene had already been disturbed. Police had acknowledged that those early actions made it much harder to determine exactly what had happened inside the house that night. News spread quickly through Springfield. This was not a story happening somewhere else. People knew Sherrill from the saloon. They knew Suzie and Stacy from Kickapoo High School. 3 women disappearing from the same house was something the community simply could not understand. Looking at the scene, investigators quickly concluded they were dealing with an abduction. What followed was one of the largest search efforts the region had seen.
Officers and volunteers combed remote areas in and around Springfield this weekend. The search turned up some items, but like others found before, there's no indication they're related to the disappearance.
Police officers, volunteers, and outside agencies searched for any sign of the 3 women. Tips began coming in almost immediately. Over the years, there would be thousands of them. The case was featured on America's Most Wanted, taking the investigation to a national audience. Like many high-profile investigations, the sheer number of tips became a challenge in itself. Detectives had to separate genuine leads from rumors.
But you saw the river, but you just didn't see them down there.
More than 24 detectives continue working leads around the clock, and leads continue to pour in.
More than 30 years later, investigators are still asking anyone with information to come forward. If you are enjoying this story, I would really appreciate you subscribing to Criminal Cadence. It helps this channel, and it means you won't miss the full story or the next one. Now, let's go back to the investigation. As the years passed, the investigation never really found the breakthrough detectives were hoping for. The 10th anniversary came, then the 20th, then the 30th. Each time, local newspapers and television stations revisited the story using the same 3 photographs of Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy, frozen in time. Detectives continued to follow leads, interview witnesses, and assess thousands of tips. But despite decades of work, there were still no verified sightings, no arrests, and no confirmed suspects. One person who never let the case fade from public view was Stacy's mother, Janice McCall. She gave interviews, appealed for information, and kept asking the same question. How could 3 women disappear from a single house and leave so few answers behind? In Springfield, the case has never been forgotten. New detectives, journalists, and independent researchers have revisited the evidence time and again, each hoping to spot the detail everyone else had missed. So far, no one has. From this point on, it is important to separate established facts from theory. No one has ever been charged in connection with the disappearance of Sherrill Levitt, Suzie Streeter, or Stacy McCall. The people I am about to mention have all been investigated, discussed publicly, or publicly associated with the case over the years. Under the law, they remain innocent unless proven otherwise. With that in mind, there are 3 theories that continue to come up whenever this case is discussed. The first theory is one investigators have returned to repeatedly over the years, that whoever entered the house was known to the women, or at least wasn't seen as a threat. The reasoning is straightforward. There were no obvious signs of forced entry, no clear evidence of a struggle. Their valuables were still inside the house. Yet, 3 women disappeared during the same night. Investigators have long considered the possibility that someone was allowed inside voluntarily. That's one explanation the evidence could support. But it is important to remember that it remains only a theory. No specific person has ever been identified as the individual who may have been invited inside that night. The second theory centers on a man named Robert Craig Cox. Cox was living in Springfield in June 1992. He had previously been convicted of kidnapping, and years later, a murder conviction in Florida was overturned on appeal. Investigators questioned him during the early stages of the Springfield 3 investigation. Years later, Cox made a series of public statements about the case. In media interviews, he claimed the women were dead and that their bodies would never be found. But he never explained how he knew that, never identified a location, and never provided any information investigators were able to verify. Robert Craig Cox has never been charged in connection with the disappearance of Sherrill Levitt, Suzie Streeter, or Stacy McCall. His claims have never been substantiated, and Springfield police have never publicly named Robert Craig Cox as the person responsible for the disappearance of the 3 women. Whether his statements reflected genuine knowledge or were simply unsupported claims remained unknown. The third possibility is the broadest and the hardest to pin down. Over the years, a number of other theories have been suggested, including traveling offenders and organized crime. But Springfield police have never publicly identified any of those theories as the answer, and there is no verified evidence linking them to the disappearance of the 3 women. The truth is, every major theory explains part of the case, but none of them explains all of it. And that is exactly why this case remains unsolved. The evidence points in several directions, but never far enough to reach a conclusion. One of the most persistent theories in this case centers on the south parking garage at Cox Hospital in Springfield. Years after the women disappeared, police received a tip suggesting they had been buried beneath the site. Crime reporter Kathy Bird later pursued the lead, working with engineer Rick Norland, who examined part of the garage using ground-penetrating radar. The scans identified several underground anomalies, including 3 roughly human-sized disturbances. But the scan could not determine what those anomalies actually were. Springfield police reviewed the findings along with the original tape and decided not to excavate. Investigators said there was no independent evidence linking the women to that location, and excavating an active parking structure would have been a major undertaking. More than 30 years later, the garage has never been excavated. Whatever lies beneath that concrete remains unknown. What isn't uncertain is who these women were. Sherrill Levitt had been painting a dresser. Suzie Streeter had just graduated. Stacy McCall had called her mother to say she would see her soon. Those ordinary moments became their last known moments. More than 30 years later, no one has been held accountable for what happened inside that house. If you know something that could help this investigation, Springfield Police and Crime Stoppers continue to ask you to come forward. Thank you for spending this time with me and with the stories of Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy. If you appreciate careful evidence-based storytelling, I would be honored to have you subscribe to Criminal Cadence. Until next time, take care.